I'm just going to give it another minute and see who joins us. It's just a minute after the start time. We have quite a few people now joining on the call, and I know we still have a number of other people that are supposed to join us. This is Howard Shore setting up the call. Welcome, Cheryl. Welcome, Rondi. We've got Lewis and Tom, all B of A members. I think you all know each other. We're going to keep everybody muted. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to have everyone here today. I'm also going to need a little bit of help because those of you who have done webinars, this gets a little lonely here when we're doing them, because it's not like when we speak, we can see the audience, we can touch the audience, and we can see when you're engaged. We can see when you're sleeping or doing something else. So I'm going to be asking you from time to time just to type something simple into the chat box to let me know that you're still there. And then at any time during the webinar, if you have any questions at all, if I've said something that left you curious, just go ahead and type something in the Q&A box. It's on the bottom of the screen, and you could ask your question at the moment that I can stop. I'm going to stop and go ahead and answer those questions, and then that way it's more interactive in terms of making sure that I'm giving you what you need today. And then and just to test it and make sure that we're all going, let's do something easy. If you guys can just go into the chat box right now and make sure that we're already starting off on an engaged start. Can you just let me know how you're doing today, and just go into the chat box real quick here. And I'd like to know how you all doing today. Awesome, awesome. So at least you're not sleeping yet. We're off to a good start. Let me let you guys. Some of you know me well. Some of you actually don't know me at all. And so I just want to do like a quick overview in terms of a background, what my experience is and all that. So I've owned 6 businesses. 3 of them are active. I had my first successful exit in 1986, so I'll date myself a little bit, at age 21. My leadership experience actually spans over 30 years, and I've held leadership positions in 3 Fortune 500 companies, actually Fortune 150 companies, so they're very large companies. I've done everything from startup all the way up to 20 billion in revenue. And I've been an executive and business coach since 2004. For those of you who are familiar with the scaling up process, I'm one of Vern's original coaches when he started deciding that he wanted to bring on coaching partners. And I've been part of it. I was part of his first certified coach program, where he started certifying coaches back in 2007. So I was part of that first class, and I've been with him longer than that. And I'm also a best-selling author. I'm a CPA. I'm a certified executive coach. I have bachelor's and MBA degrees. My bachelor's is actually in accounting. That's how I became a CPA. General MBA. I have all kinds of different certifications. I have a few of them on the bottom. But really, it's my business experience and the outcomes I get for clients, I think, that get people more interested in what I have to say. So what I want to share with you is a glimpse into a system that, honestly, for everybody that's on this call today, can unlock your organization's true potential. And it's in ways that you probably cannot see today, even if you're doing awesome. I'm going to use a 3-step process I use in everything that I do. I provide context. I'm going to help you actually create a base market map is the main tool that we're going to use today. And then I'm going to identify next steps for you to do after the meeting. So I'm actually going to give you a homework assignment afterwards, because this was not just about the webinar. I've been a B of A member. I'm going into year 3, and I really am proud to be a B of A member. And if I can in some way truly help the members scale their businesses, that would be an honor for me. And so that's truly my goal for today. So what I want to do is I want to kind of give you a case study first. So what I'm going to share with you, close your eyes for a second and imagine 3 years from now, time has passed, your team accomplished all of the goals it had established and more. You have a stronger management team, a higher percentage of employees are fully engaged, and your competitors want to learn how you built such a strong culture. Well, that's what happened for this company that I have on the screen right here, Titan. It's a restoration company. Titan, who's still one of our clients in Phoenix, Arizona, is a company you would go to if you had a fire or a flood in your home or business. So when Titan came to me, they were doing well before they hired us, and they even had a coach. They had good margins, and their performance was well above industry norms. But Russ Palmer, the CEO, realized they could do much better, and he had reached a plateau. So he called us up and he says, listen, it's taken us 20 years to grow to our present size, and he knew that his team had much more potential, and he wanted a fresh approach. So not going into too much detail, we introduced to him our proprietary methodology. It's called the Business Acceleration System. And we introduced it to the leadership team. We established an audacious goal for the company, and we developed a strategy to create a profitable position in the market. And so one of the tools we use with them, we're going to use today, and I'm going to just give you a quick overview of the methodology. So for me, it's important to have context of where a tool fits in a picture. Otherwise, it's just a tool, and it's important to see the picture. But fast forward now 3 years later, so their original goal with us is, hey, Howard, we would be really happy to double in size in 3 years, because it took us 20 years to get here. And by the way, they tripled in size. Their growth rate has been 6 times the industry average, but more importantly, their profit margin is 5 times the industry average. And the way in which we got there was employee engagement. I am very, very big on how we build culture and building employee engagement. And so their employee net promoter score is 63. And for those of you who are familiar with the net promoter scores, you would know that that's exceptional. And this is in a construction type company, which makes it even more exceptional. So our methodology starts with scaling up. As I mentioned, that's embedded in our process, as well as other methodologies. And then what I've done is my book Leaky Bucket came out a couple of years ago. It's a bestseller, and now my new book's going to come out, and it's going to highlight how we've expanded upon the Scaling Up framework, which is renowned, and built it into the Business Acceleration System. And basically what we've done is we've helped our clients really figure out that there's 5 plates that they need to spin at all times. And it's essentially a framework for working on your business rather than in it. And what you need to think about in terms of these plates is they're interwoven and not sequential. So as leaders, we must constantly and simultaneously spin these 5 plates. So stewardship, the first plate you see here on the left here, it relates to how well we build a highly functioning leadership team, inspire all the employees to a central idea, and then build a harmonious culture. Human capital management is it relates to how you treat people as assets instead of resources. Resources are things we use and dispose of, and assets are things we need to find the best assets, take care of, grow, and get a return from. And then strategy, that's the plate we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to give you kind of the construct of that plate in a few minutes. But essentially, there's three components to that plate. And that's basically, how is your business model going to attract an unfair share of the market and make you an extraordinary amount of profits compared to your competition? And then how are you going to continue to grow over time? And then the fourth plate revolves around planning, and planning is simply about creating focus around goals, clarifying what those priorities are, and then aligning everything. And then the last piece is accountability. It's about communication, clarification of what expectations are for everyone, making sure that what was planned is getting done. And that's kind of my simplest way to describe this methodology. And what we've done is we're now going to move into the strategy area. We've kind of broke the strategy area into three pieces: the business model, segmentation, and differentiation. And what I'm really going to focus on today is one of the tools in the business model area. And what I want you to recognize, though, is when what strategy is first. So this is my favorite definition of strategy. There's a number of strategy definitions out there, but Michael Porter, who I got to work with over 20 years ago when I was at Ryder, he defined strategy as deliberately choosing a different set of activities to deliver a unique mix of value. The keywords I want you to see here is set of activities and then unique mix of value. This is really, really important. I had a client call me up today, and she was really clear that she had two segments she wanted to go after in the market, and she knew she wanted to grow it, but they're not really getting any traction. They're really excited about some of the companies they want to get in those segments. But then I asked her the magic question: what is the different activities that you're offering those companies? And one of the segments is healthcare, that is so different and profound and valuable to those companies in the healthcare sector that they would want to leave their current vendors and come to you. And she couldn't answer that question. And that's why they're not actually getting traction in that segment. And so right now, she's actually going to pull the leadership team together, because now she had the aha moment, because we've been talking about it for a while, and the light bulb finally went on. So it's really important, because often you'll go to a company and you'll ask them, what is your value? And they'll say, well, it's our people. Well, it may be your people who deliver your value, but that doesn't identify the set of activities those people deliver that causes the unique mix of value. And so please think about that as you're building your strategy. So to me, the secret to competing in business is not being the best, it's being unique. So the best action we can take is to create a strategy that avoids competing with rivals on the same dimensions. This is essential, and there's a book out there called Blue Ocean Strategy, and I just love the name of that book, because that's what we all must do, and there's always a different way to play on different dimensions. But we have to stop and ask ourselves, is that what we're doing? So now, just to make sure I haven't lost you yet, because I'm talking a lot and I can't see you, please go back in the chat box and let me know, are you still with me here? and then let me know if you have any questions. So I see a question on there on a list of books that would be nice. I'm going to make a note, and to everybody that's on this call, we actually offer out to our clients a list of books to read on all subjects to grow your business. Obviously, I'm going to recommend my new book, and there's a few other books on that list, though, with regard to strategy and other areas that you're going to find very helpful here. Definitely, when it comes to creating a strategy on new dimensions, I'm going to recommend Blue Ocean Strategy. It's one of the ones that we like a lot, but there's some other ones that'll be on my list. So I'm going to make sure that I do that. And someone on the call, actually, Mayumi, Mayumi asked me to mention a little bit more about the Net Promoter Score, and that's a great question. I take for granted that people know some of these terms that I use, and I think that is one that I need to define. So the Net Promoter Score is commonly used on an external basis to understand how we're doing with customers. So, so everybody is probably has received a survey at some point and asking them, would you refer us to a friend or colleague? That's called the ultimate question. And using that question, companies are measuring customer engagement. And the theory behind that question was always, well, if a customer is engaged and they are basically a promoter, which means they're a raving fan, so they would refer us to somebody, they would give us a 9 or 10. And that's much more valuable than somebody that's satisfied. There's a big difference between somebody saying satisfied and somebody that's a promoter. And so we do the same thing internally because to me satisfied, and in the essence of that question, was satisfied is the equivalent of getting a C. Being the quality of somebody that somebody would refer, that's the equivalent of getting an A. And that's what we want to achieve in our businesses. So we have now taken that concept and we move it inside the company, and we have a question that's essentially the same, but we ask employees, would you refer us as a place to work to friends or family? And if they give you a 9 or 10, they're promoters. If they give you a 6 or below, they are detractors. 7 or 8 means you got a C. And the percentage of 9s and 10s minus the 6s and belows, the same way you do the external Net Promoter Score, provides you with your promoting score. And it's very indicative of how well you're going to perform. And for every 10 basis points, they say that you move your external customer Net Promoter Score, revenue doubles. And from what we've seen, the companies that we get to 50 and above in employee Net Promoter Score, their performance is far above that of their peers. Not only that, but managing those companies is just a sheer pleasure, and recruiting, even in this market, is much easier. So hopefully I've answered that question. If anybody needs further clarification, I will be happy to go further. And I'm just seeing if I missed any other questions. It looks like I've captured all the questions, so I'm going to keep going. So now what I want to share with you is a little bit why strategy is not easy, but we've come up with ways to kind of make it a little bit easier for folks. And actually, I went 2 slides, so I need to go back, I believe, 1 slide. Let me just see. There we go. So I didn't realize I clicked forward. I guess I was so busy talking. So the way we look at strategy, it's a little bit like going to the ophthalmologist's office. We have to make strategic choices, and you need to consider it from many angles and different distances into the future. Often, we look at the same choices and we're looking through these different lenses, and these same choices may look very similar. You know, when they're flipping those lenses, sometimes you're like, I don't see anything different, and you're like, why is this doctor bothering me? And then all of a sudden, we get a new context. We flip a new lens, and then the leadership team sees the decision, the choice, or the situation more clearly. This new clarity can have a profound impact on the strategy, growth, and profitability of your business. So that's why we use these different tools. We don't want to add complexity to the business, but we realize that we have to flip those lenses. And every time we use a different tool, it's instructive and it helps the leadership team really think about their business in different ways. One of the things, though, that I've realized after doing this for well over 20 years is we tend not to be market focused when we're doing strategic thinking, and this is a huge mistake. We think we're being market focused, but we're really being internally focused and product and service focused. So when we're working with you and we're looking at these tools, we really want to challenge you to look at the external marketplace when you're asking questions, and not just your immediate competitors, but the different ways in which someone might address the problems and challenges that you're trying to help them address. So for example, if you think about transportation, we can do transportation in a lot of different ways. We can walk, we can take a car, we can take a bus, we can take a train, we can take a plane, we can take a boat, we can swim. There's so many ways in which you can get from point A to point B. So if you only look at your direct competitors, you're not looking at the market correctly, and you're not really understanding how you want to solve problems and challenges and change the set of activities properly. So I think this is really important. So what we do is we bring these different tools and then we start asking the questions. So obviously we're going to address this one, so I'm not going to talk about this more. And this is not in an order in a particular way. And this is not all of our tools, but I wanted to give you a picture that the market map you're going to see today is just one of many. And some of these you've probably heard of, and some of them maybe you haven't heard of. So the flywheel comes from Jim Collins' Good to Great, and we use this to help you simplify your business model. So the flywheel, if you read in Good to Great, was where Jim Collins talked about how hard it is to really get your business moving and to really get it so that it has momentum. Well, there's a lot of stuff in that wheel, and I talked about this at one of the B&A meetings, B of A meetings, about how this wheel gets moving and how hard it is. But what you'll find is there's usually no more than 5 components to your flywheel. And when you can simplify your business conceptually that way, it really helps you think on what dimensions do you have to differentiate your activities. And then you realize at least the people playing in your space that are direct competitors, they have the same conceptual framework, and then you can really challenge yourself, how are you going to differentiate? Another tool that we use is the attribute map, and this plays very well with the market map, and where we're looking at the market and the different ways in which you compete with the other types of competitors, not just the direct ones, and then we look for the white space. Where is it that no one else is playing? And help you figure out where you could play and really play in a different dimension. Core customer plays off of segmentation. And many clients, what we're finding is they're going after too many segments, and they're the master of none. So we're really trying to help them understand which segment of the market, and have you really narrowed it down and understood that segment well enough. And then we get to another concept that's known from another well-written author, and it's called job to be done. And what exactly is the job to be done that everybody's missing? That segment, that very narrow segment that you want to own. And when we say narrow, it doesn't mean it's not big. Um, seven, it's usually about 7% of the overall huge market space, um, and it could be worth billions. And no one's really defined the segment properly, and people are missing the job to be done for those people. And when you get it, you can kill it. And then when we've got that right, we also think about something called the catalytic mechanism. And a great example of a catalytic mechanism is, if you remember a few years ago, it actually almost killed them. It was not the greatest catalytic mechanism in the world, but you remember when Domino's said, when they gave that, you can have your pizza in 30 minutes or less, or it's free. That obviously boosted sales, but it created a big problem for the franchise owners that were having trouble delivering it within the windows. There were car accidents happening and all kinds of problems that created it. But it definitely boosted sales. So catalytic mechanisms, when you lock it around the main job to be done, and you can put it around that main promise, can really cause your revenue to take off. And we also look and try to help you find X factors. These are perennial problems in businesses, and when we isolate them and really get you honed in on them, they can either be big influencers for huge revenue growth, or create huge competitive advantages if you solve them. And many times they're elephants in the room that everybody in the industry just dances around, because rather than solving them, they just accept them as norms. And then another tool that many of you may be familiar with is the business model canvas. And basically it's laying down your business model in and it has 9 different boxes on the canvas, and it allows you to compare yourself against the competition to understand, are you really making choices and looking at the sets of activities in ways that makes you unique and different. So as you can see, these are all different tools and different lenses you can use from a strategic framework standpoint to allow yourself to make sure, do I really have a strategy, or am I just selling products and services? And so those are the things we do. And so when we do this correctly, at the end of the day, you're making sure that you are not just trying to look different, trying to be the pink grapefruit among the yellow grapefruits, because you can stand out, but it can be a big so what. What you want to make sure is that those great people that you've added to your team are putting together a unique set of valuable activities, a substantial amount of product value for the customer that matters in a way that the rest of the market is missing for that very narrow segment that you've set up. And that's what we're going to do. So now what I want to do is I want to take us, I've taken you through the funnel. I've shown you how this map fits into a strategic framework, and that's just one plate in amongst the 5 plates. Now let's talk about how we look at the market. So I want you to think about the market as an arena. And that nice little young man right here, that's my son Gabriel when he was 11. And here we are at the Heat game. And you see, there's a problem the way we're looking at the arena if we were actually trying to build strategy right now. So this is great if I'm at a basketball game, but actually at times I can't see the whole court. And if the cheerleaders are down there, I'm distracted by the cheerleaders. Shame on me for the women that are on the call. You know, I'm talking to Gabriel sometimes. Sometimes there's players right out front, talking to some of the fans. But it's really hard from my vantage point. I can't see what's going on behind me. And I'm really having a narrow view. We're only about 11 rows back. What you really want to do when you're doing strategy is you actually want to be in the nosebleed seats. So it's counterintuitive, but when you're up top, you can see the entire arena. There's nothing behind you. It's all out in front of you. You can see to the right, you can see to the left, you can see the entire court. There's nothing that's not out in front of you. And that's what you really want to do when you're doing with strategy. You don't want to be myopic. And so you want to treat this in this way. So the tool we're going to use right now is the market map. And it's an external analysis tool. And what we're going to want to do here is we're looking to see how, and we're going to test to understand how your company has set itself up and how it fits itself in the market space in its industry. And we want to understand how it possibly sits versus some of its key competitors. And we want to make sure you're doing the right things for the right customers. And it's a really cool tool. I'm just going to put everything up on the screen. Oops, go backwards one. There we go. So what you're going to see is we're going to do this, and I'm going to actually have you guys do this live, and this is why I wanted to jump to this and get to it as quickly as I can, is we actually lay out and we look at all the players in the market. We basically lay them out in the arena. And starting from left to right, you're going to see we lay out all the potential segments in the market. We look at the different channels to get to those customers, and I actually break this down into two different types of channels. I looked because some people actually sell through distributors, and so that's one layer. And then obviously you actually need people to actually add distributors and manage those distributors, and that's another layer. You have to put marketing on top of that to create brand awareness. So we have marketing channels as well. Some people don't have that extra layer, and most people don't. And so we want to use, and we want to see all the channels you're using to actually get to your segments. So we want to see how many segments you're using, going after. We want to make sure there's not too many. How much of your revenue comes from each segment? We're going to have different conversations you're going to see about this. We want to see how well you are at each one of the channels you're using. How strong are you? We want to see what associations are you part of? Are you leveraging those associations? What associations could you be part of? So we don't want to just see, by the way, what you're doing. We also want to see what you could be doing. So again, this is a market map, not just what you're doing. It's a market map, so it's what could you be doing. And then we want to see who are the competitors in your space. Who are the main ones? Who are the big ones? What are the competitive sets? So on the left side, you're going to notice this is where how your money comes in. Now on the right side of the map, you're going to see this is how your money goes out. So we want to see who are the suppliers, who are your key suppliers that makes your business tick, the ones that you're leveraging, where your big money goes out to. And then which partners do you partner with that you actually have money going out to, but by partnering with them, it's also critical component to your business. So in the construction industry, for example, or the restoration industry, a lot of the restoration companies actually use third parties to do their construction and reconstruction, and all they do is the mitigation work. So over here, big dollars go out to these third party to do the work, and then they make just 35% margins, and they depend on these partners, these contractors. So they have a blue sticky here that says contractors, third-party contractors, that are critical partners to their business. And of course, those contractors see my clients as a critical partner to them, because that's where they get all of their revenue. Or a majority of the revenue is from the restoration companies. So then what happens is you're kind of laying out and you're saying, who are your partners, who could be your partners, which are good partners, and which ones are working. And we want to kind of lay it out that way. And so I want to stop here for a second. What are your questions? Because I've said a lot. It's not easy to do in a webinar format. So what questions do you guys have so far in terms of how this market map lays out? And because we're going to go, and I want to actually start doing one, but before I actually start having you do one, and I'm actually going to go, and we're going to go section by section, and you guys are going to need your I suggested that you have sticky notes, and I also suggested that you have a an easel and the notepads, so that you can actually start doing the sticky notes like this, so you can lay this out. So what questions you guys have about the market map? Later I'm going to tell you, once you have it all set up, what questions to ask and how to use it. But let's just start with where your questions are. Go into Q&A or go into your, you can also go back into the chat, either one. Okay, yeah, we're going to have an applicable example in a second. Actually, we're going to have a full example when we're done. For the person that's leaving, we are actually going to do, we are recording it, so I will share so that you guys have the video, you have the slide deck in the video, as well as the words to go with it, as well as we'll offer people to do a call afterwards to help you work through. So let's kind of work through this, and then I'm actually going to give you a real life example of one that's filled out. But it's usually best. So this is one that's filled out, but I want you guys to do it with me. So actually, let me go backwards, and we'll just do it section by section. So the first company, so Paradata. So when you start creating yours, you put the name of your company in the middle. That's your first sticky. That's the easiest one. So Paradata is a merchant processing company, and they were based in Canada. And actually, when they created this map, they accidentally came across being in the merchant processing space. It was just a software development company. They created an application, and then it wound up being used in merchant processing by accident. A lot of companies happen that way. And so the CEO actually brought in an expert to help them map the market, because they didn't even understand fully how the market worked. So the first thing they did was, oh, I didn't do it step by step. Let's start on the left side. Let's start with customers, and what I want you to do now is I want you to do do sticky notes. Pick one color of sticky notes, and I want you to break it down into segments. not just segments you do business with, but also segments of the market, the ones you, possibly ones you've chosen not to do business with, ones you want to do business with, and ones that you are doing business with. So you would have a separate sticky for each one. So you'll notice in Paradata's case, she looked at one segment as small and medium-sized merchants in Canada, small and medium-sized merchants in the US, large merchants in Canada, and large merchants, and actually it was large merchants in the US and large merchants in Canada. So this is a typo. It should be large merchants in the US. So I'm going to give you just a few minutes here. Give you a few minutes to come up with your stickies and come up with all the different segments that you might consider. Okay, so I got a great question up there. I have two separate customers, accountants and entrepreneurs, which I have segments. Should I do a separate map for each customer type? So typically what happens is, and the answer is yes, we would typically want to see a separate map for each if you truly have two different customers. What happens in many markets, and the restoration is a great example, is if you think about the restoration space, they get their customers through many times the insurance company. So the insurance company refers um, the end commercial property or the end residential client comes through the insurance agents, and they get scores based on what they do. But the challenge is the actual customer is in question. Is it the insurance company that's the customer, or is it the end person? And you've got to decide whether you believe it's the end customer or it's the insurance company that's actually going to be the person that you want to attract. Who is it that, so is it the person that writes the check? Is it the person that makes the choice? Is it the person, in this case, is it the person that has the problem, or is it the person that writes the check? Because in all cases, the insurance company is the one that writes the check. So in most of our clients, they look at the insurance company as the customer, even though it's the property owner that is the one that has the problem. So they market to the person that writes the check. So Mayumi, in your case, both people are writing checks, so you actually need two different maps. So I'm going to let other people finish up, and I just want to talk on that subject just a little bit more. So what's interesting is when people get done with the two maps, what you start realizing is, wait a minute, I need two maps, and I'm tiny, and meanwhile, you have billion-dollar companies that only have one market map. Why do I need two maps and I'm tiny? And so then you've got to start challenging yourself, which market do I want to own? And that would be like a challenge if Mayumi was my client. Because now she's got this huge challenge. She's got to build two markets. most people have trouble just building one. So now Lewis has a good question, and now we're going to build the next. So I'm going to answer Lewis's question, but now I want people to start putting down the channels. What are the different channels that you can use to acquire your client? And I'm going to put some more stuff down here so people can see. Actually, I'm going to let everybody see the map so you can start filling it in if you get ahead. Whoop. So the channels is the different ways you can acquire those segments. So in Paradata's case, and then I'm going to answer Lewis's question, is they have a direct sales force, and then that direct sales force going to get the SMEs. And by the way, they also have a sales force over here that helps them get more of the merchants. So they have a direct sales force that helps them get customers, and then they also have a direct sales force that helps them get merchants. And then they sell through merchants. So they need more of these, and then they need more of these people to get more of these. And then, by the way, they only have customers in this space. They don't sell to these people at all, as you're going to see later. So now to get to Lewis's question, he says, what if the partners are writing the checks and their clients? Same scenario, to maps. So now my question is where's your biggest money? Because I would rather spend my time where the biggest money is, and is who's really going to make the decision, and is the final decision maker going to be the one that makes the decision. And so I need to know a little bit more about that, because in some cases, think about healthcare. Right now we've got, like, for example, we've got Vivos. Vivos is they do the sleep apnea product, and I called up to find out whether my insurance was going to cover part of that product. So and so you've got the doctor who's the distributor of the Vivos product, and then you've got me, and then you've got an insurance carrier involved, and I'm going to be the buyer. So you've got a distributor who's the channel that Vivos sells their product through, and then you got me, the buyer. But at the end of the day, I'm the one that's going to make the decision on whether I buy the product. And a big way in which I'm going to decide whether I buy the product is my insurance going to cover it? So now you've got a bunch of different players in this game, and but at the end of the day, how would I? The first they have to get the dentists on the plan, so they're selling through dentists, so that helped them add a bunch more volume. And the end consumer is the one that's actually going to pay the check. But what they found out in their business model was, at Vivos, their revenue went up tremendously when they put their focus on the dentists, not on the end consumer. So my challenge to you is, Lewis, where should you put the most focus? And when you put the most focus on that, that's going to move your revenue needle the most. So in many cases, if you work on your partner and you train your partner right, they're going to handle the end user for you. So you need to educate your partner, I think, in your particular case, from what I know in your business. Once we get the channels down, so hopefully you guys have done your stickies and put your stickies for channels, the next two areas you're going to do stickies for, who's the 5 to 6 key competitors in your market? And sometimes it's competitive sets. So I'm going to go back to, in this particular case, there were really 4 main competitors that Paradata was worried about. A company called Authorized, CyberSource, Exact, or Beanstream. But you might also have like a category. So I'm thinking in restoration, plumbers is a category that has started stealing share from restoration companies in terms of when there's water damage. So on a market map for restoration companies, we usually have a sticky on the bottom called plumbers. So you might have a group like that. And if I was doing a transportation model, I might have other categories that are different from mine, and I might have those other groupings of other categories on my map. And then on the top is, what are the big associations? Not every possible association you can join, but what are the big major associations you're either a part of or you should have considered being a part of, because that's where those people on the bottom are at. And so maybe they've joined some things you haven't joined, and your team should be looking and thinking about, wow, those people have joined that association and you haven't. And now I'm going to go into, there's some Q&A, there's some questions in the other one. FAT said intimate marketers with high ticket offers and email list of at least 35K, B2C, B2B companies with over 1 million in revenue and a database of 1 million 50K contacts. So typically the identity of what you're looking for in terms of a segment is they could be groupings in terms of it could be B2C versus B2B. So definitely in when it comes to marketing, a marketing firm, there is a distinct difference between B2C companies and B2B companies and what you need to know to serve them, and what they expect you to know in your experience. So if you've never and actually you talk to us, and one of the questions we always ask is, what is your experience with a B2B product versus a B2C product? And we've talked to a number of marketing firms that have no B2B experience. And so if they don't have B2B and they've only done B2C, that's important. So deciphering between B2B and B2C, I think, is important. Also, I think deciphering between size of company. So I think when you're a marketing firm and you're out there in the market, I think thinking about segments of companies that have an internal marketing department and companies that don't have internal marketing departments, I think is important, because I think the problem they need solved is different. And I also think segmenting the market in terms of, the different types of problems or needs. So there's segments of customers that just want social media, and there's segments of customers that want traditional marketing. There's segments of the market that want full service. So figuring out what stickies you put under the customer segments is not always easy. So I think what you've highlighted there is very, very important, is how do we break down? Are you going to do it based on industry? Are you going to do it based on size company? Are you going to do it based on how they're configured internally? I usually like to do it thinking sometimes based on problem or job to be done, and then thinking about how that may change those boxes. But many times also the size, like what you put there, has a big problem. So if you look at Paradata's example, the small merchants had very different needs than the large merchants, and creating a platform for the small merchants, when the competitors set up their businesses to serve the large merchants, they didn't have an infrastructure that could serve the small merchants. So when Paradata set up their business to serve the small merchants, they had a competitive advantage. They actually gobbled up the market, and the large merchants couldn't, the companies that were serving the large merchants couldn't respond. So I think you're thinking along the right lines. So now, if you've gotten the other stuff and you're thinking about suppliers, and I don't have partners because Paradata didn't have partners, I get a lot of questions between what is the difference between a partner, a supplier, association, sometimes partners or channels, and those are often questions I get, and sometimes there's a fine line between somebody who's, and let's take, for example, you might be part of a organization, a franchise organization. And so if you're part of a franchise, is that franchise your partner? Is that an association? Um, or are you part of them because they provide all your leads and so you consider them a channel? And you can argue that you can put them in different buckets. The important part for me, not always, is did you get it in the exact bucket, but did you get them on the map so you can see how they lay out in your map and you understand that it's in the market map. So I think that's an important part that you need to put down. But many times something like the franchise is an association. And then in other cases, the partner is somebody that you're both benefiting from. You're bringing them something to the table, and in many cases, the partner is they're almost dependent on you generating the revenue, and then they're actually delivering um, a huge part of the product or service, so you're co-creating the product or service together. To me, that's a partner. The supplier, on the other hand, is somebody that you have a large portion of your money going out. You're looking for the main suppliers. So usually with a minimum number of boxes, you can see 60% of your money going out. So this is the non-people boxes, but these are your suppliers. So you have 80% of your money on the right side of this page now between the suppliers and the partners that are the non-people money, the non-employees. So they're the independent contractors, the third-party IT companies, the outsourced developers, in this case, the data centers, that outsourced marketing firm, the outsourced CFO, that kind of stuff. So our job is to get it all up on the map. Hopefully I'm giving you guys good perspective and I haven't scared everybody away. Are you guys all still with me? Let me know a little bit if you're still with me or if you have questions up there in the chat box. Okay, Rondi's still there. Still with me, that's good. Cheryl's still there, good. All right, Lewis is still working on it, that's great. Thank you, Tom. Bob, how you doing back there? All right, so let me give you guys an image. This is what it looks like it's done, and this is where your homework comes from. When you get a market map done, this is what it looks like. And the reason I tell you not to draw, and I like to use stickies in the beginning, is you can imagine you're moving stickies around. I think this is a partner. No, wait a minute, it's an association. Oh, wait a minute, it's really a channel. You know what? I don't like this channel. You know what? We don't want to play in these channels. So in the beginning, you're starting with the whole market. You're laying out, these are potential channels we can play. These are channels where our key competitors play. You're laying it out, and eventually you want to distill it down. So in the beginning, we start really broad. We want to put up all the potential channels. We want to put up all, the key places where we could possibly play in terms of customers. We want to put out, where the suppliers are and the associations. Then we distill it down. So this is where, so this was a point in time, and obviously I took this market map for Paradata and I distilled it down to a point in time. And by the way, Paradata eventually sold for a huge multiple because they wound up owning the majority of the small market. And what happened is they realized a few things. They did a little bit of direct sales, but you're going to notice only 10% of their revenue came from direct sales force. They realized that the best way for them to penetrate the small merchants was going through the banks, processors, and ISOs. And the best way to do that was to educate these people. They already had the customers, and they were actually an advantage, and in a way, they were a partner to these banks, these financial institutions. You see, when they went out there, and the reason they decided to go after this space was these financial institutions were trying to build their own merchant processing platform, and it was very costly, and they weren't very good at building their own technology. And it really didn't make financial sense for each financial institution to build their own platform. It made much more sense for a company like Paradata to build their own platform and to resell it or sell through these companies. So what they did was Paradata actually provided their platform to these institutions for free, and it was basically a share, a revenue share between them and these financial institutions to sell to the merchants. And then their cost structure was, because as you can see, you see the processing now, the banks, you see here they're a channel. Here they're actually a supplier. So they turned out to be both. And so basically the banks aren't going to, there's going to be no money flowing that way because they're making money. So 25% of their cost structure was data centers, 10% was developers outsourced, 5% of their cost structure was office leases. So what this map helped them do is they helped them understand how money flowed through their company and helped them see how they laid out versus their competition. And they helped them see how their money flowed. Now, what was interesting is they were a Canadian company. More of their revenue actually came from the US than it came from Canada. And in the future, this number actually spread even further, and they became more of a US-based company than a Canadian-based company. They were actually more profitable in the US than they were Canada. And there's more stories behind that later. And they figured out how to build these channels. But going through all of this, it actually helped them. And there's some questions that I want you to think about as you build your map. So what you want to do is you want to start figuring out how your money flows. And here's some questions that I want you to ask as you're going through. So one of them is, are you really making true penetration into the customer segments that you want? So often we see lines going to too many spaces along here. So for example, we recently did this with a new client. They had like 14 red boxes here. And they had lines going to 11 of them. And then when we asked a lot of questions, 70 to 80% of their revenue was coming from one box. It was very, very instructive. And their cost structure, 80% of their cost structure was being spent on 20% of their revenue. And it really opened up a lot of questions. Why are you spending so much money and why are you getting so little traction? And you clearly have a competitive advantage in their particular case in this one segment. And then we started asking why, and they've decided, well, we own this segment and we do it better than anybody else, and we have capabilities here that nobody else has. So we asked them, why did you stop expanding it? And they told us, well, we've mastered the market share in our geographic area. And so then we asked them, well, why did you not expand the geographic area? And then the light bulb went on. So they're now going to take that nationally. And first, more broadly across their state, and then nationally, and they're going to drop going after all the other segments because they clearly have a competitive advantage in one market segment. And they've never really thought about taking that to broader markets and just taking advantage what they're best in the world at. So sometimes you have an advantage and you're not thinking about it, and other times you have no advantage at all. And you have to ask that question. If you don't have any unique mix of value compared to the other alternatives that that segment has to consume your products or services or the problem you solve, you guys better stop and talk about that. If you need to have a special advantage to at least one segment, and if you don't, then that's where your conversation is going to go. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to move to channels. So another thing that we see is a lot of boxes and channels. And so after we've narrowed it down, we'll see way too many channels. And then we'll ask the magic question. So which channel do you acquire customers through the best, and which one's the most effective channel to get your customers, and which one of these channels would your competitors die to understand? How do you do that? How have you become so good at acquiring customers in this channel? Because we can't do that. And are you fully taking advantage of that? Have you doubled down? Have you tripled down? And are you fully taking advantage of that? And then what's your secondary channel and what's your third channel? The next thing you want to ask is, because what you'll see in a lot of industries is everybody's using the same channels. And there's kind of a, everybody's following each other, but no one asking the question, is there a better way, smarter way in this day and age to be getting customers? And have we just been too lazy to figure out how to do it, too scared to figure it out? And if we did, we would garner more to the market, because today the buyer in that market is different than it was 5-10 years ago, or the buyer in that market is going to be switching their behaviors, and we want to get out ahead of it, and we want to make that our second or third channel today, because it's going to be our number one channel in the future. So that's another question that we like to ask as we're kind of going down. But the biggest obstacle we see in a lot of companies is you haven't mastered any channel. You're just okay at best in a channel, and that's why you're really not growing. You have okay growth, but not great growth. So once you have a differentiated strategy for your segment, then you've mastered channels, you've got kind of the coming in advantage. The next question I want you to think about is associations. Too many organizations are either part of associations and not doing anything with it, or they're part of associations and they're doing stuff, but they're not really mastering taking advantage of the association. So they're not getting the full return on investment, and this is a time to kind of ask why. And then there's associations they really should be playing in, and they don't. And you've got to ask yourself, why are we not playing there? Because that's a great way to gain access to the core customer. So all your core customers are there and you're not. Then the next place you're going to look at is you're going to look at your partners, and you're going to ask a tough question. Have you really been taking advantage of your partner relationships? Do you have bad partners and you're just letting it go for too long? Are there other people or companies out there that you really should be leveraging and you don't, and they would make amazing partners? And if you did, and you each leverage each other's core competencies, you would be stronger and more profitable together. Um, and 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 do you have a partner right now and you're calling them a partner and you're fooling yourself and you're just wasting energy with them? Same thing with suppliers. Um, there are and in this day and age, hopefully you're taking advantage of your buying power with vendors through your associations, through affiliations, and if you're not, many times it's because no one in your company has been given accountability to, there's no one person that's their job. And I recommend that you have one person, and it's their job to think about, are we taking advantage of vendors? Are we taking advantage of suppliers? Do any of them need to be upgraded because it's degrading the value that we offer to the end customer? And are there ways in which we can maybe turn a vendor into a partner and lock up the market? And it would be to their advantage and to our advantage. So these are some of the ways we use the market map to look at the marketplace, and then we're looking at these folks at the bottom. And if you were to look at your market map and say, hey, our market map would look exactly like our competition's, you've got a problem. You've really got to look at it and say, with an honest lens, we are going to market the way money flows through our company, from the way money flows out and the way money flows in. Our business model is different. And you can honestly say, because of that, our profit margins are better and our growth trajectory is faster. It's by looking at these interconnections that you can cause that. So now I'm just going to look real quick, see if I missed any questions here. And this is a good time to ask more questions. Any more questions now that I've run through all of that? Great. So I'm just going to remind you that this was just one plate that we were working on as part of an overall system. And as leaders, as CEOs, you have to work on all 5 of these plates: stewardship, human capital management, strategy, planning, and accountability. If at any time one of these plates is weaker than another, then we focus more on that one plate. But at all times, you're spinning all 5 plates. And then we're going to use different tools at different times to look at your strategy differently, to help you think about, do you have a different set of activities to make you different? So one last thought I want you to think about, and it's the fact that everyone needs a coach. So often I meet leaders and they beam with pride, telling me how great their company's doing, how exceptional a team they've put together. They mention how they've done a good job so they don't have to manage the people that they've hired. And I'm going to tell you that this is a big issue if you're one of those leaders. Um, Steve Jobs at Apple, God rest his soul, Eric Schmidt at Google, Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, and a number of other great leaders that I would say have superior teams would tell you the opposite. Actually, they all use the same coach. This guy's name, and God rest his soul as well, was Bill Campbell. Actually, Eric Schmidt wrote a book. I don't know if you guys have seen it, um, and it's called The Trillion Dollar Coach. And Eric was inspired to write the book because after working with Bill and talking with the other CEOs, they all realized that they would have never created $1 trillion worth of value had they not had Bill in their life. And these guys, if you met all of them, they're amazing. And I have a coach. I participate in 2 peer groups, and I will tell you, I still have so much more unlocked potential. Coaches have helped me see things from an outside perspective. They've challenged me to let me know when I'm fooling myself and I'm not giving 100%. They help me see when I have what I like to call willful blindness, and they give me a framework like the one I've just shared with you for attacking my problems and challenges. And it causes me to really address those blind spots, and it helps you with your team and helps that function better. And the best analogy I can give you is working out. And I know a bunch of you work out. I've been working out since I was 13. And those of you who know me, I'm competitive, I'm hardworking. And I even won a strong person competition, in my weight class when I was in college. I have a gym in my house, so God knows I know how to work out. But man, when I go to my trainer, he makes me do things I would never do to myself. I I would always do less if I'm honest with myself. He um, he makes me work on my form. He makes me do extra repetitions. He makes me work on those minor muscles, and he pushes me to do cardio. And I got to be honest with you, I hate that last piece. And thanks to him, I'm in better health. And so my challenge to you today is, if you don't have a coach, get one. It's really helped me, and that was one of the things I wanted to kind of leave with you guys and gals today is, if you don't have even a one-on-one coach, even if you don't get a business coach, it's really helped me. I've had 7 different coaches over the last 30 years, and it's really changed my life. And so the last thing I just want to offer with everybody today is, I've set some time on my calendar on the 19th and 20th for, this is a lot to absorb in a webinar, right? If you go back now, because your homework now is to draw those lines, fill out the rest of your map, um, figure out how the dollars flow, finish out your map. If you want to go through your map, even if this time fills out, because there's quite a few people on this call, if your time fills out on the map, if we can't get you in between the 3 and 5, contact Joanna on this phone number, or Joanna at activategroupinc.com. Um, uh, Again, it's Joanna at activategroupinc.com. Schedule some time with me. I'd be happy to help you finish this map, or if you just want to talk about something going on in your business, or what it looks like to have a one-on-one coach or a business coach, please feel free to call me, and I'd be happy to set you up. I thank you for your time today, and hopefully you learned something today that can help you accelerate your business, and thank you for your time. You all have a great day, and I wish you well.